Every weapon ever! Well, not every weapon ever, but I found a pretty comprehensive list of melee weapons, so I'm gonna tell you about melee weapons. All of them. Starting with fist weapons. And if you like this video, hit the like button and leave a comment telling me that you liked this video and what you want to see next. Starting with the bagh. Those rings are placed over the fingers and the blades are inside, and they're essentially used like a tiger's claw, which is where the name comes from and what people think inspired the weapon. While not necessarily lethal because these can't really go deep enough to rupture organs, they can definitely mess somebody up and were even sometimes poisoned. Some people wore them under gloves in order to give them an advantage of surprise during a street fight. Some Indian warriors even had these in their left hands while they had a larger single-handed weapon in their main hand. There are similar ninja weapons or mall ninja weapons, but these are mounted more to your wrist and hands and are emphasized a bit more towards climbing. They'd still hurt though. Next up is brass knuckles. These are designed to concentrate all the force of a punch on a thin area and also protect the tender bits of your hand while you're punching so you can punch hard. We've seen a lot of variations with these where they're included in guns and knives, in other knives, but covering all those is another video. The Roman cestus was a battle glove made of leather that was designed to protect the user and was sometimes studded with metal or barbs or other things in order to hurt the person you're fighting more. Boxing matches featuring these were in the Greek Olympics and also in the Roman Colosseum. Kind of weird how they have an Olympic sport and a blood sport and they're the same. But anyway, some defense, some offense. It's wrapped around the hand, so that kind of supports the bones in there, kind of similar to a boxer's hand wrap. Next up are deer horn knives, and they were often used for trapping and controlling opponents with larger weapons. They were relatively easy to conceal, so gave the user a decent way of combating better armed opponents. Signs point to these being one of those more demonstration martial arts focused weapons as opposed to a heavily used martial arts weapon. Emei daggers were mounted on a ring and they were able to spin around, and it's thought that that was to disorient an opponent, and then you just grab on and stab like a regular dagger. Signs point to these also being kind of more of a display weapon. I mean, they would definitely mess somebody up if stabbed, and they'd be relatively easy to conceal, but the African finger knife is a knife ring, and I think it's pretty easy to see that this would have a lot of utility and could also hurt somebody pretty bad. And a gauntlet could definitely be used to punch somebody, and some even had studs on the knuckles called gadlings, which were sometimes more decorative but sometimes more functional. You can also see similar in tactical gloves that have a same reinforced punching surface. And next is the Indian katar. If you've seen a lot of my videos, you know that I absolutely love this weapon because, you know, it's a punching dagger, but really heavy duty. And those barbs going down the side were often wrapped with silk or other materials, so that way it would be really reinforced on your hand. And a punch from those could go through chain armor. The La Rim fighting bracelet was often dismissed as jewelry. However, it had a lot of utility purpose and in combat was pretty brutal during grappling, and there were a number of strikes with it. It was a really good way to carry around a knife if you don't really have pockets. The maduvu is essentially a small shield with long pointy bits coming out of it, and you can stab with those pointy bits, and those pointy bits also cut off different lines of attack, so pretty useful. The Indian pata was the katar's bigger sibling. Instead of just being a dagger, it was an entire sword. Although it was used drastically differently. Like I mentioned, the katar is a punching weapon, but the pata was often used with flourishing spinning strikes. It was a slashing weapon. The Japanese teko was essentially a different form of brass knuckles, although these were just stirrups taken from a horse and used to punch people in the face. Good concealable weapon. Chinese wind and fire wheels were used kind of similar to the deer horn knives in that they could parry and disarm people, but you could also slash them and stab them with these. And that's most weapons that go on your fist. What sort of weapons should I talk about next in this similar format?